For real. It logged me out. If there's one thing I love in this world, it's a dark academia novel because he's kind of like this gross, yucky guy. Don't do it. Don't you grab that book. He is a shadow daddy. And they're probably gonna make like a cute little baby. And how does that work? Anyways. Well, hi. Hello. Welcome. Hi. Welcome back. Thank you for joining me on today's video. I am really excited. Today is the last day of February, the last day being February 29th because it is a leap year and it is an extra day in February, which was much needed because I finished my last book this morning, which if you watch some of my vlogs, I'll go into how I have some very unique OCD aspects to my personality, and one of those is that I really like to start and end things on a month if possible. I know it's not always possible. No, it does not happen every month, but I finished my last book this morning. I had like, I don't know, 40 pages or something left, and I was like, it's perfect. It's like meant to be. A leap year. February 29th, I would not have had this day to do that next year or last year. So anyways, there we are. But yeah, today I am really excited because we're going to talk about my March TBR. And I'm going to keep it kind of short and concise because a lot of these books I've actually talked about in some of my previous videos already. But because of that, I think we are going to keep this one a little bit shorter, and I'm just going to briefly go into each book that I want to read. There's maybe one or two on here that I haven't included in a video before, so those I might go into a little bit more detail. I don't know. We'll see. We just have to fly by the seat of our pants over here on Lori Beth's channel. Thank you for joining me on this unhinged journey today, but I think we should just go ahead and jump right in, get started with the first book. So also today I want to mention that I am using my story graph to help me keep track of. If you have not utilized this app before, I cannot recommend it enough. I love the way that this app functions so much. I of course have a Goodreads. I love the way that Goodreads works, and I've used it for years and years, but like the last 6 months of the year of 2023, and now of course in this year, I have been incorporating Storygraph alongside my Goodreads to see which one I prefer, and I am in this year leaning more towards Storygraph. I love the way that it kind of organizes things for me, the stats that it gives me on the books that I read, and not just that, there's this really cool, if you go to your TBR, on Storygraph, there is like a next up section. You probably won't be able to see too well, like on the camera. So basically you can choose a queue for books that you would like to read next on your TBR, because if you are like me, your TBR is outrageously out of control and you've got hundreds and hundreds of books on there, and sometimes you're like searching for the book that you really had in mind to read next. The up next queue is really great for that. You can add up to 5 books and you can kind of move them around in order if that's how you would like to have them, or if you just want to throw 5 on there that you think you're interested in reading next. Highly recommend utilizing that feature as well. I absolutely love using the app. I will see myself, I think, for the rest of this year, probably just kind of kicking the old Goodreads to the curb. You know, I'm super cool. I'm super hip. Let's get into book number 1. And this book I have talked about before, so I am not going to go too much into detail on it, but I would really, really like to read A Fate Inked in Blood by Danielle Jensen. So just a quick recap of this book. This is a story, this is a Nordic story. So Norse mythology basically meets fantasy, which signed me up. As soon as I saw the synopsis for this book, I was like, this is the fantasy setting I didn't know I was missing in my life. Give this to me immediately. The cover is absolutely gorgeous, and I just got the special edition from my subscription box, which I will show in my vlog video, link down below. And that's even more stunning than just the original cover. This is a story about a woman named Freya who is destined to become part of this unwanted marriage because of her station in life. And she has no interest in being married to this king or whatever he is because he's kind of like this gross, yucky guy. Like your typical story about she's like this young, beautiful woman and she has to marry this guy that she has zero interest in whatsoever. She has such little interest in her husband that she has even fantasized about basically taking an axe to his back and getting rid of him so she doesn't have to deal with him anymore. Lo and behold, this whole like idea of her being free of her husband comes true, and he basically betrays her, but she becomes bonded to this man called Bjorn, who believes he is destined to be the king. What no one knows is that Freya actually contains a drop of goddess blood, which makes her like this incredible shield and an incredible weapon to be used. And just one drop of goddess blood makes her this incredible force of nature, I guess. It sounds kind of like a enemies to lover story where this guy Bjorn basically binds her to him through this blood oath. Like she is like forced proximity, having to be around him. Then slowly over time, they start to develop feelings for each other, and then they start to work together. Anyways, quick synopsis, I know, of the story itself, but to me it just sounded like such a beautiful setting for a fantasy story, and one that I don't read often. So this is very high on my list. I don't know if it's going to be the first book I read necessarily in March, but it is going to be read in March for sure for this year. Next on the list for March is A Curse for True Love by Stephanie Garber. This is the third and final book in the Once Upon a Broken Heart series, and I absolutely devoured the first two books of this. Here I go again, becoming a broken record about how I have a thing with finishing a series, and this is kind of that instance. So the third book has been out. I haven't picked it up and read it because I so much enjoy this world that I don't want it to end. Just a quick recap on the series itself. We follow our main character, Evangeline Fox, and over the course of book 1 and book 2, she has traveled to the Great North, where she has gotten into all sorts of adventures because she originally made a deal with Jax, the Prince of Hearts. So Jax, being the Prince of Hearts, is actually what they call a fate in this world. And fates are kind of like gods or like demigods, I guess, and they are usually no good. So making a deal with a fate always ends up being bad for whoever makes that deal. So we have followed Evangeline going on all of these adventures with Jax, and along the way, she ends up being married to this prince and living in this beautiful castle, and she thinks that she's going to get everything that she's ever wanted in life. But of course, nothing is as it seems, especially because this is all based on the deal she made with Jax. Throughout this series so far, we have watched Evangeline kind of grow into this beautiful young woman, where she started in book 1 very, very naive about what she thought she wanted and maybe what she even thought love was. And now she is dealing with this relationship that she has made with the prince she's married to, the feelings that she has maybe developed for Jax over time, even though he's very much like cold and standoffish. He also seems to be very caring and has like this soft spot for Evangeline, and he calls her Little Fox. Get out of here.
Get out of here.
Could you come up with a cuter nickname? Last and final book of the series. I'm super excited to see what happens, how Evangeline is going to finally handle all of these situations that she has gotten herself into. She ended book 2 being like this much stronger character. The prince that she was married to was actually under a curse himself, so she was trying to figure out who put the curse on him, solve all these mysteries, basically be the queen regent while the prince was like under this curse, and also try to deal with all the ramifications that she has created from making this deal with Jax in the first place. Kind of in the first book, you start with Evangeline being a little bit young and kind of naive. The growth of her over the first 2 books is really what sucked me into this world, and I can't wait to see how the series ends with the way Evangeline has developed throughout the series. And Stephanie Garber is just so talented at writing these whimsical fairy tale-like stories where you feel like you are in these worlds while she is writing. Like you can imagine you are in this beautiful Great North with princes and castles and parties and balls, and it's just lovely. And I don't want to drag this out too long because when I tend to do that, I start to lose track of what happened in the previous book that I read. So I'm trying not to do that either. So I think I would like to get this series done and read, and you know what? It will always be there for me to go back and reread if I truly just want to be back in the world again. So this one is definitely on the list. I'm super excited. I think I'm going to do it in March of this year. All right, next up on the list is An Education in Malice by S.T. Gibson. I have talked about this book multiple times already, but I think I want to get this on my list for March because I am so excited to read another book of hers. I have talked endlessly about how A Dowry of Blood basically changed my brain chemistry at the end of last year, and I am truly
blessed
that S.T. Gibson is giving us not one, but two novels that I get to read early on in this year, and I'm so excited about it. So An Education in Malice has somewhat of a dark academia setting. This is at an all-girls school set in the hills of Massachusetts, so already I'm like, love it, love it, love it. Love the idea of where this setting is at. And our main character, Laura, when she becomes part of the school, she immediately gets into this like academic rivalry with another main character named Carmilla. So it sounds like not only do Laura and Carmilla have this rivalry building between them, they are both pulled into this relationship with a poetry professor at the school as well. It sounds like it's going to be very dark, kind of macabre, twisty. I imagine that these rivalries are like kind of cutthroat. You know, you're talking about young girls and their emotions, and then not just like the emotions of young women, but very driven, very smart young women in this academic setting. And then over time, I believe that Laura and Carmilla start to develop more than a rivalry with each other. Like they literally develop a relationship with each other. So this is also a sapphic romance as well. S.T. Gibson, the way she blew me away with A Dowry of Blood, her writing is so romantic. I'm very excited to see her handle a dark academia setting, because if there's one thing I love in this world, it's a dark academia novel. Another thing I love in this world, romance. So if she can write the way she wrote A Dowry of Blood with those two things of mine that I absolutely adore, I feel like I'm going to devour this book. Okay, so next on my list is Foxglove by Adeline Grace. This is the second book in the Belladonna series. I don't know if this is the last book of this series or if there is going to be more to come. I have actually not looked too much into it. If this was a duology, I would be beyond thrilled, because I'm telling you, if there's one thing I love more than a series, it's a duology. And when duologies are done right, they are the most delicious thing to read. They are so satisfying. I'm going to do a video on duologies, I think. Duologies are like my favorite. So anyways, Foxglove, second book to the Belladonna series. I read the first book, so Belladonna, I believe in, I want to say like September or October of 2023, because it kind of kicked off my like spooky season vibes of the year. It is a very like dark and mysterious type of setting, kind of gothic, if you will. The series follows our main character, Signa, who has been touched by death. Basically, the book starts with her at this party with her mom when she's a baby, and everybody at the party dies. Like, it opens on like this very macabre scene of like this whole house of people just die, and the only one that survives is Signa. So from birth, she has literally been touched by death. And throughout her life, she continues to see people around her, or that she cares for, or not even that she cares for, people just around her in general, always end up dead. So she is orphaned as a baby, but she does have an inheritance that she is going to claim when she turns of age. And throughout her life, people keep taking her in hopes that they will be able to gain access to this inheritance if they take care of Signa for her whole life. Unfortunately, everybody that takes her in always ends up dead. Some of them are really good people that make a difference in her life, and some of them are really, really people. Like I think it was like her aunt or someone that she ends up with at the beginning of the book, who's just awful, like literally treats her terribly, like basically locks her in a room and she has the bare minimum to live on. Her aunt dies and she ends up finding out she has some estranged family that are going to take her in as their ward until she comes of age. The good thing is they're already rich. They don't really give a crap about her money. So she gets to go and live at this beautiful manor, and she is suddenly thrust into this world of like a really good way to describe it is kind of like the Bridgerton vibe, right? So she goes to this lovely manor that is actually kind of dark and twisty, but she has two young cousins that she gets to try to build a relationship with, which she's never really had before. So she's learning how to be a young lady in society from her cousins. And that includes like coming out. So they have balls and they have parties and all of this. And her one cousin is very sick. And she is worried because now she has shown up and everybody in her life seems to die, that she is going to cause her cousin to kick the bucket and it's going to be her fault that she died, and this family has already lost their mother and she doesn't want to do that to them, and she's starting to care for these people. So as the book goes on, Death starts to make more of an appearance and she starts to develop a relationship with Death. He explains to her more about what she is to him and what he is to her and why all of these things keep happening in her life. And she's trying to so badly prevent her cousin from dying that she ends up almost making a deal with Death, saying, please don't take her. And he was like, if I spare her, then we have to create balance in this world and someone else is going to have to die. So Signa is like basically dealing with all of these inner dilemmas of, you know, caring for her cousin and developing a relationship with Death, and then also not wanting people to die anymore around her. It was so perfectly gothic. I really loved the blend of, again, like that gothic manor setting, but the Bridgerton vibes. So you get like the society and them like creating friendships and relationships. Then you also have the fact that she is developing a relationship with Death. And I mean like developing, like
He is a shadow daddy.
in the first book. So I am really excited to grab book 2 and see basically where we're gonna go from the way book 1 ended. I'm trying not to give too many spoilers because if you haven't read it, then I don't want you to be like, well, thanks. Now I can't read this series at all because Lori Beth just ruined it for me. So I'm babbling on about this one, but it's because I'm kind of like, I'm remembering suddenly how much I really enjoyed that series. So I think I'm going to put this pretty early on in the month. It's not necessarily a super heavy like fantasy book, which is kind of nice as well. So if you are looking for something that, again, has like those dark gothic vibes, it's not super high stakes to the point where you're like getting so much world building and character building that you can't keep track of what's happening. It is really just like this neat little package of a little bit of fantasy of like a beautiful young woman who may or may not be developing a relationship with someone who, does he even like have a body? Do we even know for sure? But like things are happening between them. And I loved it. I loved every minute of it. I've just like been wanting to read so many things that one kept getting pushed down and down on my list. But I think now is the time I'm going to try and read that for my March TBR. Last but not least, Bride by Ali Hazelwood. I am so pumped for this book. I'm so excited, and it's coming in one of my subscription boxes, so I haven't purchased it yet. I've walked by it like 18 times at the bookstore and I'm like, don't do it. Don't you grab that book, because I have that special edition coming. And of course I got a notification that said there was some issue with the printer, so it's going to be shipped later than normal. And I was like, of course it is. Of course it is, because I want it so badly. I just finished Check and Mate. If you have not read that book, it was absolutely phenomenal. It was Ali Hazelwood's first YA novel. I also talked about it in my vlog that just dropped the other day. So again, go back and watch that one. Link down below. It had been a minute since I read an Ali Hazelwood. She will forever just be in my heart. Like, I've already talked about how I could create an entire Stan account just for Ali Hazelwood. The Bookish Girlies have been truly blessed by this writer. I don't know how she does it, but she does. Like, the banter in her books is out of this world. It truly feels like you are watching a TV show, like a reality TV show, but like a good one that you just can't peel your eyes away from, and you need to know what happens, and the people just make you laugh. So Bride is actually going to be her first delve into fantasy / paranormal, and it is still going to be a romance book. So in this story, we follow, she's like the daughter of the vampire king, and she is going to be forced into a marriage with the alpha werewolf, or like the alpha son. I don't know werewolf hierarchies. I apologize. Not my forte. Basically, they are going to be forced into this marriage to keep a peace treaty across the two worlds, so like between the vampires and the werewolves. Already, I love it, because if there's one trope that I love in a romance book, it's either enemies to lovers or like rivals to lovers. I eat that. The intensity and the passion that comes behind that trope. Like, you think enemies to lovers, they're starting here, but they're gonna end here. What has to happen? Like, what is occurring in this middle part that makes that happen? Ooh, it is juicy. It is so, so good. And because I know I've like basically devoured almost every book of hers yet, I have not read Love Theoretically, which I will. It's like, there's no rhyme or reason why I haven't read that one yet. I have now read 3 of her romance books, and every single one of them I could barely put down. Ali Hazelwood's writing is brilliantly funny and smart. She has always written about very smart female characters, which I think we've all come to realize that is just something that we need. We love a good damsel in distress, but you know what I love more is a bad female who knows how smart she is. There is something so alluring about a female that knows her worth. So I'm really excited to see what she does in a fantasy paranormal setting. I think she's going to be able to bring that type of real world, like, smart female to the fantasy book as well. And then the fact that we have like this vampire girl like marrying this werewolf boy, I'm sorry, but don't we all love like a werewolf boy? Like, I think we just do. Like, you can't help but love that. So I'm really excited to see like how that's gonna pan out. You think like old school Twilight and you're like, what team are you? Team Edward or Team Jacob? Like, do you like vampires or do you like werewolves? Well, guess what? You're gonna love them both in this, and they're probably gonna make like a cute little baby. And how does that work? I don't know. I have a lot of questions, and hopefully they will be answered soon in March, very specifically for this TBR. I can't wait to read that one. I totally forgot that I even had coffee down here. All right, so there you have it, you guys. We just went through my up next section on my Storygraph together. If you have not used this app before, download it, try it, see what you think. For me, the stats are like the best part about it. Only putting 5 on this video because I'd like to keep it a realistic goal for myself for the month of March. If I end up reading more, then I'll be super excited to go over those with you in a March wrap up down the road. If I don't reach this goal, then you know what? It's fine. Like, we've all got things going on. But anyways, as of now, that's what I have planned for March. I'm super excited to read each and every one of these. A very fantasy heavy month, which is not unusual for me. But I am really excited about that dark academia book kind of like thrown into the mix as well. As always, if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and hit that thumbs up button down below. It always helps a girl out. And if you want to make sure you don't miss any more videos like this, go ahead and hit that subscribe button too. I am also going to link any videos that these books have been mentioned in previously in the description box down below. As always, it has been an absolute blast, and I can't wait to see you guys in the next one.